What would happen if they started to release TV shows in movie theaters? Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new video. Today we are going to rank my top 10 favorite TV shows. Just keep in mind that this is my list and that sometimes it is constantly changing. This is just kind of how I'm feeling today. Most of these are pretty solid choices on any given day. Right before we get into the video, if you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button, letting me know that you guys like the content that we put out here. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for the recent love on the channel. I really do appreciate it. And if you like this video, you'll probably enjoy my other ranking videos as well. So without further ado, let's get into the ranking. And coming in at number 10, we have The Office. This is just one of my favorite TV shows. I know it's a very popular TV show and a lot of people would even have it at their number 1. I just have to put this in my top 10 from the sheer amount of creativity that the show has and always making like those really very specific and funny situations. Obviously, the heart of this show is Michael Scott.
Words I would describe you as is aggressive, hostile, and definitely difficult.
Please, Mr. Buck.
I'm irate right now.
Give me the phone. Please give me another chance.
Can we help you?
Michael, I like the sound of your voice. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy $1 million worth of paper products today.
But between the ways that he bounces off of each of the characters, it really makes you smile, and it is so easy to like cling on to one of these characters and just really enjoy their journey throughout this show. So it easily comes in at number 10 for me. Coming in at number 9, we have Comedy Bang Bang. This is one of those shows that I know not a lot of people have heard of, but it's personally one of my favorites just because it perfectly aligns with my kind of comedy that I'm really into.
Hard to get, you know, like a real juicy dish.
I get you.
Wasn't that funny? Please don't, not this again.
Essentially, the premise of the show is they bring on like a guest star and they kind of do like a late night talk show kind of thing. But it is layered with improv and little bits and just all this different stuff. And a lot of the times it's just little quippy, dumb stuff. It's a lot of the jokes you can tell, they feel like they were written in 5 minutes. It's those kind of jokes that you and your friends would make when you're like having lunch with each other. And there you get a little bit of that, and then you get jokes that have been like thought over like over an entire season. So when you mix both of them together, it makes for some pretty entertaining TV. So I have to put it at my number 9. Coming in at number 8, I have The Mandalorian. Ever since this show debuted, it has become one of my favorite Star Wars shows. And I absolutely love The Clone Wars. The Clone Wars is probably my second favorite Star Wars show. But I don't know whether it's the little bond that Grogu and Din Djarin have in this show, or if it's just the getting to see the aftermath of, you know, between when The Force Awakens happened and not The Last Jedi, and Return of the Jedi. Getting to see that, and then with all the different characters that they mix in and just the way that they blend everything in this show, I'm always excited for a new episode. Even if it's like, one of the reasons I love the first season so much is that it's not so much about this big grand scheme thing. It's just Mando making his way around.
Tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called...
You know this is no place for a child.
And then season 2 comes around, and it's a little bit more of the same with some characters that get introduced again, but you get a little bit more of that. And then now with season 3, it's just, you can tell they're starting to go into like the second half of the show. So I absolutely cannot wait for season 4, and I hope that it comes soon. Coming in at number 7, I have Danny Phantom. Absolutely one of my favorite like animated shows of all time. When I watched, this is one of those shows that I can just put on, and whether I'm like really getting into it or just watching it, or if I'm just kind of like feeling sleepy and I want something to put on the TV. It's one of those shows that like just brings me back to my childhood of like, just, you know, like eating a grilled cheese sandwich in front of the TV while watching this show and look, all the different little ghosts that they have, and even the storyline itself is fantastic.
Sorry.
It's just one of those great animated shows that you kind of just don't forget about. And for me, it just so happens to be Danny Phantom. Coming in at number 6, we have Drake and Josh, probably my favorite sitcom of all time. I know that a lot of people are going to be like, wow, that's your favorite sitcom of all time. I just feel that this sitcom is so close to my heart. I love a lot of different sitcoms, but every time I go back to this show, I never fail to be entertained by what was relevant at the time of this, which was like the early 2000s.
Oh, is that why your parents named her Gorilla Back?
Say something!
Her name is Maureen.
And it's just cool seeing that time period, and that this was like the spark for so many Nickelodeon shows such as iCarly and Victorious and all that kind of stuff. And it just, each episode has something interesting going on. And then you also have Drake and Josh, who Drake, you know, is this very like dumb guy, but Josh, they all have like these very specific catchphrases. And I think even to this day, I'm still quoting like different things that Josh will use emphasis on. And I think there's even a joke that they make in the show. He goes, "Emphasis!" It's just, every time I talk about that show, I want to watch it more and more and more. And I wish there were more episodes to go back and watch, but it has to be in my top 10. Coming in at number 5, I have Supernatural. So this is one of those shows that I did not grow up watching totally. I watched this about my 8th grade, starting 8th grade a little bit, 9th grade. And I just really got into it. And by the time I was getting ready to finish it, the show had just finished up. Well, all I have to say is that this show ends perfectly. They have the perfect villain for the end, and they set up everything in a way that like they definitely couldn't have gotten to this point sooner. And all of the different people that they meet, and it's not always a straight line. Like there are some demons that are bad, and there's some demons that are good, and they're, you know, and vice versa. I think what the show gets right though is like the idea of like brotherhood and family. It just, you feel like you're one of the Winchesters.
What are we doing?
We're hunting a ghost.
A ghost, exactly. Who does that?
Us.
Us. Right. And that is exactly why our lives suck. I mean, come on. We hunt monsters.
The whole time through. And it's one of those TV shows that like goes through time. Like it started way back in the early 2000s. And as you grew up with them, 15 seasons of 15 years of Supernatural. It's a long time for a TV show to be running, and it definitely shows. Coming in at number 4, I have Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I know this is a show that not everyone has watched. I know a couple people have watched this show. It does get some love, but if you're asking me, I think it deserves it is my favorite Marvel TV show. Every season has something cool to offer. There are 7 seasons of this show, and I began watching it like the day it came out. I remember that, you know, this was around the time that Captain America: The Winter Soldier was getting ready to come out. And as you go through each season, they always touch on things, aside from season 1, that really aren't talked about in the MCU much. You get Inhumans and Ghost Rider and the Darkhold, and a lot of these things, you know, besides the Darkhold, really weren't talked about in the MCU all that much.
Go, I got this.
And it's cool to see a group that, you know, maybe isn't the Avengers, where, you know, you have Quake, but really that's it. And you don't have all these people with superpowers all 100% of the time. And I think that's really cool to keep the show grounded and not just feel like anyone's invincible. And aside from that, you have all these great characters like Fitz, Simmons, Agent Coulson, and you can kind of just feel that, like, while they do exist in the MCU, which is what I believe, that they have their place in that world, and that, you know, they might not be the Avengers, but they definitely have their place to fill in making sure that S.H.I.E.L.D. stays S.H.I.E.L.D. Coming in at number 3, I have Breaking Bad. So, probably considered to be one of the best shows of all time. Most people would even consider it their favorite show of all time. When I watched this show, I actually did not watch much of the show growing up. I had seen clips of it growing up a little bit, but I never really got too much into it. It wasn't until about a year-ish, maybe 2 years ago, when I really started to get into it. And it just blew me away from how good they set things up from the very beginning of the show, to watching a man who just wants to make sure that his family's taken care of go into this like psychological break and become something, you know, make something of himself that he was never able to do.
Because your boss is gonna need me. 6353 Juan Tabo, apartment 6. Yeah.
And I think that's something that, you know, on a big scale, you know, it really hits this TV show, but on a small scale can relate to a lot of people who have, quite frankly, never done the things that they wanted to do. And between that and, you know, all the different characters that you mix with Jesse, it makes for like such a great show that, of course, they had to have a spinoff. And even the spinoff is considered one of the best shows of all time. Coming in at number 2, I have Gravity Falls. Growing up, I remember the first ever teasers that we got of this show on Disney Channel. And then I found out it was going to be on Disney XD. Well, this show, I will admit, just kind of felt like this new age of Phineas and Ferb at first. I was like, oh, okay, this is just going to be like a fun little cartoon that you watch on like Saturday mornings. I was so wrong. This show, I think, lore-wise, had some of the best build-up, and I remember after every week I would go on YouTube and there would be tons of different theories and, you know, Bill Cipher this and Bill Cipher that, and, you know, where's the third journal, where's this journal, and all of this build-up. And not only was it just build-up, but I can't tell you that there is a single bad episode of Gravity Falls. Every single episode, even when it's building to something, has a cool creature or a cool little gimmick thing that it has, you know, to work with, or is very entangled with the story. Every single episode is fun to watch.
I think I know a guy.
And the animation of this show just blows me. It's almost simple, but takes time to put like extra effort on like objects that really matter, if that makes sense. Like things that really matter, it definitely takes its time on. And aside from that, the comedy's great. You have characters that are so memorable, even ones as simple as Blendin Blandin. So every time someone will ask me a good recommendation for an animated show, I point them to this immediately. Coming in at number 1, I have Stranger Things. You know, I remember when I first watched this show, it was, funny enough, I hope I don't get in trouble with my old school for saying this, but I remember purposefully trying to stay home sick just to watch the first episode of Stranger Things. This was before it was very, very popular. It was like people were talking about it a little bit at first. It was a brand new show that had came out on Netflix, and it was, you know, it took place in the 80s, sci-fi show, and people were like, okay, you know, this looks pretty good. Well, after the first season, it became huge. I remember everyone at my school was talking about it. And then season 2 came out, and it became just this like phenomena. And I can't remember ever thinking, you know, this is a bad TV show. I think of this show, and all I can think about is comfort, great storyline, really, you know, great build up to different moments, emotional character depth. With each character, you know, you each get like little small connections between like Dustin and all of his friends, and Steve and the rest of the kids, and then you have Max who comes in with Billy. Each character has so much value, and that's where the value of the show really comes from, is the characters. But what's crazy is that that's what the value was at first, but they add even more value by making the lore of the show so interesting. What is the Upside Down? What is the extent that these creatures can go to? Why, you know, what does it even mean? Where did the Upside Down come from? How did it get to Will? There's so many questions that they give you little pieces. And for a TV show on Netflix, it has some of the best action and soundtracks that I've ever heard of. I think half of one of my Spotify playlists just has this, like, all of the Stranger Things soundtracks on it. And like, it's pretty funny. So, I never have enough good things to say about Stranger Things, and I absolutely cannot wait for season 5 and to see how the show ends. So yeah, guys, that is my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time. Did you love my list? Did you hate it? Regardless, I'd love to know what your top 10 are down in the comments below. I love to have all those kinds of discussions with you guys in the comments. And until then, guys, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.